What's going on, everybody? It's Erica with Not Your Average EDC. Happy Easter, happy Sunday. It is a beautiful day, and we have a fun video today. I've been wanting to record this for quite a while, honestly, and I just haven't really had the time. I had a whole bunch of other content that I had to cover. But today we're going to talk about 3 folders in my collection that I just can't ever see myself getting rid of. And it's not just based on the model, it's the actual knife. So the literal knife will never leave my collection. And of course, I love the model, but there's sentimental value to each one, and we're just going to talk about that. But first, I did want to give you guys a heads up that next month, I think we're going to take a break from the knife testing. I've been testing knives for a year straight now, no breaks. You guys know that my knife testing lasts a month. So for the past year, for the past 12 months, every single month I've had a knife that I've been testing for the whole month. That means no freedom to carry what I want. And it is fun to test the knives, absolutely. But a year is a long time to not have any freedom day to day to pick what you want to carry. And I think because I've gone a year with the consecutive testing and I have a whole bunch of reviews up and stuff, I think next month we're going to just take a break and I'm going to carry whatever I want for a month. I really miss some of my knives because it's like when I'm done testing them, I want to use them again, but I haven't really gotten a chance lately because I've just been so busy testing. So this will give me the ability for at least a month to go back and carry some of my old time favorites that I really enjoy and I want to use further. So we will finish the testing with the native for April. We will finish testing this. And as soon as May comes, I think we're going to have a little bit of freedom with what we're carrying. So with all that being said, let's check out 3 knives that will never leave my collection. They're not in any order. We're just going to talk about them and what I've done with them. So the first one that we will go over is the Reeve Small Sebenza 31. Now this particular knife, has been through a lot with me. A lot. This is a small Sebenza 31, so that means that it has the ceramic ball interface thing there. Took off the pocket clip and put a filler tab in, but it just has those natural inlays, a little lanyard on it. This lanyard has rabbit blood in it from butchering a wild rabbit. That video is actually on YouTube if you want to watch it. I processed a wild hare with this exact knife. So if you want to watch that, you can. It's kind of gruesome, but cool that this knife did so well. So the reason that this knife will never leave my collection is because the Sebenza model was the first high-end knife that I ever got. So when I kind of graduated from really nice knives like Spyderco and Benchmade into the realm of Reeve, I got a Sebenza 21, which I still have. And I have just used and used and used that knife so much, and I never thought I would get another Sebenza really. But when they released the 31, there was just something telling me that I wanted to try this new and improved version and see if it held up to the standard that I hold these at, because the 21 in my opinion is the most perfect EDC knife that's ever been created. And this was, I had a love-hate relationship with this knife. So I tested it for a month. During the time, so when I tested this, it was last summer. I was in renovation work and construction and carpentry and just doing all types of absolutely brutal hard use. And this is one of the knives that went through the worst of the worst testing for me, the absolutely brutal testing that I did. And a lot of it's recorded. All of it is on my Use Your Shit playlist. Actual recordings of this doing some pretty gnarly stuff. But I loved the design the whole time, but I didn't like change, I guess. And I was going through a really hard time in my life when I got this. I was making really, really, really good money, and I was really, 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 really fucking depressed and like suicidal and dealing with severe alcoholism. And I hated change with this knife, and I hated change in my life. I hated what was happening. I had a lot going on. And this knife, I enjoyed using it, and I enjoyed the Sebenza itself, but the new improvements, I hated, and I trashed this knife on YouTube a lot because I didn't like that the blade moves up and down with that ceramic ball being there. I didn't like that they said that it was an improvement, but then you could send this knife in to get the blade play fixed so that it didn't do that. Like, why would you offer to get that fixed if it was something that was supposed to happen? The clip would, you can actually see the wear right here. The clip, if I squeezed the knife to do certain tasks, the clip would ride off onto the lock bar and wiggle around even though it was secured all the way. Like I said, tons of videos on the channel about this. And I just didn't, I didn't like a lot of things about this. And it's so funny because now that I'm in a different place in my life and I'm happy, I look back and I think of how silly it was to just, oh, I just trashed this knife. And I physically trashed it too. I really did some messed up stuff with this knife because I didn't care, and I didn't like the change, and it was almost like I was taking my frustration out from my personal life onto this knife and saying that this was kind of garbage for the money because of the changes that they made. Very, very strange psychology there, but I've been through so much with this knife. I absolutely love it now. I want to carry it again. I want to be using this again, and that's why I'm really excited to end the testing in April because I miss this knife. I want to carry it without hating it. I haven't been able to carry this since the testing. I've been testing since then, so I have not been able to carry this with my new mindset of not being just miserable in my life. So that'll be a really fun one to carry again. We've had a lot of history, this one and I. Its brother, the 21, is in a box behind me. Not necessarily retired, but just hanging out right now, I guess. But the 31 is about to be used. The second knife that we're going to look at is this Emerson Mini A100. This was my first Mini A100. It's gone through so many pairs of clothes. It had the original G10 on it. It's had micarta. It's had Taro Tough. It's had bone linen micarta. It's had all types of crazy scales and clips, and it was a satin finish, and then I acid stone washed it. It's had every edge you can imagine. Right now it has a convex, all different discs. This has just been my absolute dress up knife. Like, let's play pretend knife and see what looks best on it. And also, it's probably the knife that I've beaten the shit out of the most. When I first got this, I was actually working at we'll call it a warehouse, and I was doing some pretty crazy work. And halfway through my time there, we ended up renovating that entire warehouse. And this happened to be the knife that I was testing during that time. So this had a month of consecutive carry during a renovation that literally me and Nicole did ourselves, basically. Which is crazy to think about. Like, we were just told to renovate the warehouse, so we did. But this knife did everything. This was a drill. It was a scraper. It was a pry bar. It was a cutting machine. It did everything, and it just never broke, and it never let me down. I remember being on a ladder like 10 or 12 feet in the air, scraping things off of the dang ceiling and installing different things, and this was just my tool, my do everything tool. And again, never let me down. This knife was the one that got me into very simple knives, simple designs. I have said this 1,000 times, and I will continue to say it. The Emerson Mini A100 is the best hard use work EDC knife that is available on the market. The absolute lack of ergonomics just makes this the ultimate multi-tool. And some people don't think that knives are multi-tools. I think that some of them are. Some of them are created to be. And when a company tells you to do multiple tasks aside from cutting with their tools, that is telling me that it is a multi-tool. And Emerson Knives literally advocates for you just beating the pulp out of these things and using them for all types of work. So that's what I've done. That's what it has accomplished. This knife has been through hell and back. Still has the paint on it from the renovation. I never took that off, never cleaned it off. I didn't want to. It's like a timestamp for me. And people love it. I will never purposely remove that paint right there. It's just a timestamp of when I was just busting my balls working like crazy at a place where I was treated like absolute shit, but just always kept my head up and stayed positive and worked my ass off, and really found an appreciation for hard use, thick, durable EDC knives that just are... This is not the best at anything, but it's great at a lot of things. The Emerson Mini A100 is just something that everybody that actually uses their knives should try. 100%. They're so great that I have 2 of them. I had 3, but I gave 1 to a buddy. So Emerson Mini A100, this one will never leave, ever. And the last one, I don't know if you guys can guess this one or not. You may be able to. The moment I show what color it is, you're going to know exactly what it is. You already know right now what that knife is. Benchmade 940. This will never leave my collection. Number one, it's famous. This knife is just beat to shit. This one is really, really, really beat up. This one will never, ever leave. So this was my first, like, Benchmade, aside from the sequel that I got. The sequel was bought for me. That was my first Benchmade, and that was bought as a present for me. But this is the first Benchmade that I, like, bought for me. And I just remember, like, watching video after video after video on Wrangler Star's channel about the 940 and how it is the ultimate knife. And he sold it to me, like 100%. I wanted to be Wrangler Star. I wanted a knife that gave me the fizz. I needed this knife. And when I saved up the money to get it, I'm pretty sure I either cried or teared up. It was everything I wanted. It was everything I wanted. And man, this one is another one that I tested when I was in renovations last summer. So I think I tested this after the Sebenza. I can't recall, but plenty of content on this one. And this, again, Warren Osborne created this as a multi-tool. And that is what I used it as. It was a pry bar, it was a scraper, it was a screwdriver, it was a cutting tool. It did everything. Man, it was a hammer. I have a video of me at the house that I was working on using the butt end of it as a hammer in drywall for testing purposes. This knife is just my baby. And this one has a lot of soul put into it too. I mean, I tested both of these when I was at the house renovation job. This one was at the warehouse job where I did renovations as well, but this was the warehouse worker. Both of these got tested during my time renovating houses. And unfortunately, the houses that I was renovating were houses that I had lived in previously. Both of them were houses that I had previously lived in, and I had just like the worst memories of those places. And go figure, they're the ones that I got hired to renovate. And I was there all alone for 9 hours a day by myself, fixing up these beat up houses that had just been trashed. And I hated being there. I love renovation work. I hated being stuck in there because I was like stuck in my own head all day long. And I was struggling so bad. So bad. I was really not in a good place. And this is another one of those knives where it just collected a lot of scratches and bumps and bruises, and it just reminded me like of myself. Like I didn't care to wipe my hands off with if I had paint or caulking on my hands or something, or stain. I didn't care to wipe them off before I grabbed this to quickly do a cutting task. I didn't care. I didn't care that the very tip broke off when I was prying a bracket off of a windowsill, and I didn't care that it got all of these really deep, gnarly scratches. It kind of reminded me of myself because it collected all of these scars and it just kept going. And it's almost like the more it collected scars and the more it collected all of this wear, I fell in love with it more and more because it just reminded me to like keep going during those times. And it looked better and better to me, and it just reminded me of myself. Like I knew one day I would heal, and even with all of these bumps and bruises, I would still be okay, and you know, people would still love me. And that's exactly this knife. This knife, you know, might be ugly to some people that really like pretty knives, but to a lot of people, people are obsessed with this one. People are obsessed with this beat up, trashed, covered in paint and scratches 940. It gets talked about all the time. And it just, to me, is the most beautiful knife I've ever seen. This right here is the most beautiful knife I've ever seen in my life. I did everything with it, and it never failed. Like the tip broke off a little bit when I literally was jamming it into like a window frame to pull brackets off. Like I jammed it into a screw, and the very, very tip broke off, but I've obviously fixed that. I sharpened that out. I love this thing. This will never leave my collection. It is absolutely a favorite of mine, and I have tried actually on this one to wash the paint and primer and all of that stuff off, and it actually didn't come off. I tried like acetone, and I tried some paint remover, and I don't know if maybe the chalky aluminum finish absorbed the paint and stuff, but I tried scrubbing it off and it didn't come off, and that was a sign to me to just leave it. I think it looks great. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous like this, but it was also a sign from the universe to leave the scars because they're meant to be there. This knife is a warrior. This has done everything, and it never ever failed, never once failed. And it is razor sharp. This one has that laid back 15-degree per side edge that I ended up putting on it during the second month of testing, which was more recent. Earlier I was talking about the first time I tested it. But then I tested it again with a 15-degree edge on each side. You can kind of see how thick it is. Laid it back and it was like a slicing machine. But yeah, this one will never leave, never, ever, ever. None of these knives ever will. These really mean a lot to me, these 3 folders. These are some prime folders. And honestly, probably joining them once I'm done testing it will be the native. I don't know if I will ever be able to get rid of this. I would have to be pretty desperate to get rid of this. This is like the new me. Sunshiny and happy and bright and vibrant. Like this knife, not only ergonomically and use-wise is it one of the best EDC knives I've ever used. Spoiler alert for the final review. But look at how happy this motherfucker is. Like, it's got a little bobtail with a little happy bead and just sunshiny. Got a cute little colorful booty on there. Like, this is just one of the happiest knives I've ever seen. And it's become a favorite. So this one will probably be joining them. I love this thing, and I love the yellow. I am obsessed with it. I have always been into like the more natural colors, especially the green and the brown, but this one is going to be the one exception because I love this knife. But yeah, guys, that was just some backstory on some of my favorite folders, the ones that just will never leave. Let me know what knives you guys have that will just never leave your collection, ones that hold value to you. Drop those down in the comments. Go use your shit, guys. Have a great, happy Easter, and I will see you on the next video. Love you all.